Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now once again I've decided to go shopping on AliExpress to see what cheap deals I could find, and in today's one, well, we'll be looking at the cheapest liquid cooler. This is the IWONGOU integrated water cooling. I apologise for the pronunciation, I've probably butchered the name, but let's get it open and see what this is like. Now a lot of you ask if these AliExpress videos are sponsored. They are not. I do have to disclose such information and I'll be sure to tell you, but these aren't sponsored at all. I just like to buy cheap things because there's lots of cheap things on there. Traditionally, I am a fan of air cooling, but when something comes up at less than £20, well, I have to just jump in and purchase it to see if it's any good. First of all, then we have the instructions. These aren't really good for much. We do have some diagrams on here, but they aren't all that in depth. Thankfully, this thing is pretty easy to figure out. So first of all, in the box, we have the 120mm fan. This is also branded with IWONGOU as well, or whatever it's called. Again, I apologise for the pronunciation. This has a 4-pin connector on the end here, which is always nice to see. Will it be quiet or will it be incredibly loud? We'll find out later on. We also have an accessory pack here with all the necessary brackets and screws. We also have some thermal paste, which is a nice addition. This is not pre-applied to the liquid cooler itself. As you can see, we have the bag of screws. Now this is compatible with Intel and AMD systems. The full compatibility list is on the website. Now the instructions don't actually say this, they just give details for either Intel 2011 or AMD, but of course you can use it with 11.5X sockets, 1700, 1200, AM4, apparently AM5 as well, but I'll be testing it with socket 1700 today as that's the system that I use on a daily basis, along with the i5 12400F. Now there are a few options. You have 120mm AIOs, 240, 360 RGB or ARGB. This is the cheapest of the cheap, so it's the 120mm RGB option. Costs less than about 20 quid. I've seen it anywhere from 18 to 22 pounds, the 120mm option. That is. I do like the reflective top of the pump here. We also have a copper bottom here with a sticker that says please peel off. I have actually left this on accidentally before with different units. You'd be surprised at how many times actually, but yeah, nice thick braided cables here connected to the radiator. Not much to it, just a simple 120mm unit. Looks absolutely fine out of the box. Now the instructions aren't that clear as I said before, but the first thing we have to do to connect it to my system at least is attach these two side brackets, which slide in and then screw down with the provided screws, as you can see here. So basically to hold it in place on the motherboard, we have the two little brackets we attached just now. Once they're screwed into the pump, this screws directly into this adjustable bracket underneath the board itself. As I said, although the instructions aren't all that in depth, it's pretty simple to get the hang of. And once this is screwed down, we're basically ready to go. We just need to attach the fan to the rad itself and then power up the system. When it's actually installed as part of the system, it should look something like this. I've installed it, tubes down here. In some cases, you may find that you have to install it with the tubes facing upwards because some cases have a little section at the back where the PCIe brackets at the back here are actually sticking out a bit, and this can be somewhat of an obstruction, so you have to install it tubes up, but not a massive deal. It all depends on your case, of course. Now on first power on, I wasn't expecting this. We get the logo of the brand here on an RGB background, and the fan is also RGB as well. I know it said RGB on the website, but it didn't actually sink in until I turned it on, and I actually really like the colours here. It looks pretty good. In terms of noise, there is a gentle hum from the unit as a whole, but it is incredibly quiet. Whether your system is in basically idle, you're not doing anything, or you are under load, it's very quiet. Considering it cost me less than £20 before taxes, I'm surprised by how decent the noise level is. I'll just play this clip again, this time without me talking, so you can hear for yourselves. Now, as I mentioned before, I use an i5 12400F system. So the idle temp with the liquid cooler here was 30 degrees. This is after the PC's been switched on for 30 minutes and basically doing nothing. This is the temperature according to MSI Afterburner. I also ran the CPU-Z CPU stress test and we saw the temperature increase to a max of 54 degrees. When it came to actual gameplay, I played Cyberpunk 2077. Now, my system is pretty mismatched here. The i5 12400F Can't quite keep up with the 4070 Super at 1080p. Of course, that's not the point of this video really, but just worth mentioning. In the Cyberpunk 2077 gameplay test, after half an hour of gameplay, the maximum temperature we saw was 52 degrees. Now, I live in England, of course, where the temperature, well, you're lucky to see at least 20 degrees, even in the middle of July. So yeah, it's a pretty cool environment that my PC is in. I'm using the open test bench as well, so we have no other fans in the system. This is just the liquid cooler hooked up to the i5 and sitting atop my desk. Now you might actually be wondering, well, have you got any comparative results? And what I decided to do next was compare this, what is one of the, if not the cheapest liquid cooler I could find, to the cheapest air cooler. Now, I use the Thermalright Assassin King 120 SE these days, and it retails for about £15 here in the UK on Amazon. And for that price, I mean, it's very good. It's very quiet, under load or at idle, of course, and it's an ideal CPU cooler to get if you want something that's probably going to be better than any boxed cooler, and you want something that's not going to break the bank either, yet it will improve your temperatures. This is actually perfect, especially if you have an entry-level or mid-range CPU. I've used these before in a couple of budget builds, and I've always been impressed with them, especially for the price. It just goes to show that a decent product doesn't have to be too expensive. Now, the Assassin King 120 SE is going to set you back about £3 less than the liquid cooler at its cheapest price I could find on AliExpress. And in terms of comparative results, we saw an idle temp of 34 degrees. This is up from 30 from the liquid cooler. Under the CPU-Z stress test, the max with the Assassin King was 58 compared to 54. And in Cyberpunk 2077, our temperature max came in at 2 degrees less at 56 compared to the 52 degrees. Again, this was 2 degrees less than the CPU stress test with the liquid cooler. So Cyberpunk 2077 with the Assassin King 56 degrees max, and with the liquid cooler 52 degrees max. So there is a little bit of a difference here, but whether or not this is going to sway you towards a liquid cooler as opposed to the cheapest air cooler, well, that's entirely up to you. But what I will say for this 120mm AIO is that I'm very surprised. But that's all for this one. Leave your thoughts down below, of course. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, leave a dislike if you didn't. Let me know, would you purchase one of these? To be honest, I think for the money, I'd stick with the air cooling. I just prefer it. That's a personal preference, of course. I think the simpler setup in a lot of cases, but if you do want a liquid cooler, maybe you build PCs as well and you want to make it look a little more impressive visually, which liquid cooling can often do, then this really isn't a bad choice at all. Just like the cheap Assassin King, I think this is best suited to those lower end or mid-range CPUs. There's no reason why you couldn't try it with something higher end, and perhaps that's something I'll do in another video. Maybe we'll put this thing atop the i9 and see how well it keeps it cooled compared to some beastier liquid coolers out there. I think I'm going to do that actually, so hopefully you can join me then. Thanks for watching again, and I'll see you all next time.